Valentino, of course, our friend from Pensacola, former Escambia County Commissioner, and just a great friend and a person that really thinks about what's going on in the world. You know, a lot going on this week. What a bombshell was dropped yesterday with the FBI form that one of the senators released. I mean, there is nothing but some big discussion about that overnight last night. So much happening. It's just happening so fast, Gene. It's almost hard to keep up with.
Yeah. Thank you again, Michael and Ted, for letting me join you and the folks in the Pine Belt every Friday morning at 7:15. We've had a lot of excitement over here, and I've had a chance to just sit back and step away. I have a little segment on my website called Beyond the Noise. Beyond the noise means we've got so many different issues popping up and hitting us in the news every day, each with its own level of concern and import. And when I spoke to you the other day, I said, I was just coming out of a medical procedure. I said, hey, Mike, let's chill on Friday. Let's just talk about this. Let's just kick back a second. And you know what? I got to thinking, I always thought that the next generation would grow and become bigger and better, more intelligent, more responsible, more wise than the previous generation. I always thought that, at least that's what I wanted to do with my son. I wanted to hand off to him my life experiences and hope and pray that he does a better job with it than I did. In the context of wokeism, so all this diversity issue and critical race theory, you mind if I expound a bit? I have something I'd like to share.
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
Okay, so I recently got a great story off of TikTok of all places. I don't frequent that place. It was a link that was sent to me. Her name is Rebecca, and the story that she's about to give me tells you everything you need to know about equality versus equity. Therefore, socialism, Marxism versus what? Meritocracy. So here she is talking to us about her student and her class. An economics professor at a large college made a statement that she never failed a student before, but had recently failed the entire class. The class insisted that socialism worked and that we should follow the dictates of socialism. No one would be poor. No one would be rich. It's the great equalizer. So the professor then said, okay, we'll have an experiment in this class. All grades will be average and everyone will get the same grade. No one will fail, but no one will receive an A either. After the first test of grades were average, everyone got a B. And the students who studied hard were upset. The students who studied very little were happy. As the second test rolled around, the students who studied little studied even less. And the ones who studied hard decided they wanted to have a free ride too. So they studied very little as well. And the second average test result was a D, and no one was happy. When the third test rolled around, the average was an F. As the tests proceeded, the scores never improved. Bickering, name calling, blaming, all resulted in hard feelings, and no one would study for the benefit of anyone else anymore. To their great surprise, all failed. And the professor told them, when government takes away rewards for hard work, socialism would ultimately fail. Because when the reward is great, the effort to succeed is great. And that story tells you about the critical race theory, the woke indoctrination, the way Black Lives Matter, and all these issues, not the merits of the issue, But the way these issues have complicated our lives, taken our time and attention in the news media, all of these issues make us unwilling to stand apart. And that's what the problem is if we move in the direction of socialism and Marxism, because we will all fail. It's failed before in America.
Well, there is not, and nobody can give you one example, not even one, of a society that chose socialism slash communism, whatever you want to call it, Marxism. They cannot show you one example anywhere where this has been successful, because it can't be successful just because of what you just told us. The story that you told us, it does not take into effect the human feelings that, if you are working hard and somebody else is benefiting from it, well, you just don't have any reason to work hard. So what we want, and what has been the most successful in the entire existence of man, is a democracy, and democracies work better. The Romans had it. We have it. And it's a system in which people are chosen or moved into the positions based on their merit. You called it meritocracy, their abilities and their merit. If we don't, if we don't start to go back to the situation, you hear this general that's trying to get to be the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. You hear him talking, and he's like, "Okay, so we have, 13% Black, we have 10% Asian, we have, 60 something percent white, whatever the numbers were. It doesn't matter what the numbers were. But what matters is the way he feels like you ought to promote officers in the United States military is because of their race."
Yeah.
And that is exactly what Martin Luther King and all of the people back into the civil rights era were trying to get stopped doing things because of your race. So what?
But it's a cultural transition in thinking. It's this term we've used before called mass formation psychosis. It's the conditioning of the mind for you and the listeners to be willing to take this crap, which our parents would not have taught us, and we would not have been exposed to just a generation ago. Here's a guy. I want to get this in before we leave. His name is Robert F. Kennedy Jr., the son of the Attorney General Robert Kennedy and nephew to the President John F. Kennedy. So Biden's got over 62% support amongst the Democrats. RFK Jr. sits this week at 17%, as compared to a roster of about, I don't know how many Republicans, but 6 or 7 up for the debate next week. But the point is, these people were not even interested in the theories and principles of the Kennedy era of the Democrat Party. They have been so absorbed with this psychosis that they have funded with perverse money from autocratic dictator type thinkers like Soros and the rest of them. You might slandered in the halls of the Oversight Committee yesterday was Debbie Wasserman Schultz, a congresswoman from South Florida, and she created a narrative in an attempt to censor Robert F. Kennedy Jr., to muzzle him within an oversight investigation committee on censorship. Trying to censor Robert F. Kennedy Jr.
Now, you cannot make this stuff up.
You get this, but for it to have become so prevalent in the news and in all of the media conversation, as I said in the beginning of the interview, I want to step back. It's not only Wasserman Schultz. This is what almost became the Democratic leader, Hakeem Jeffries, launching these hyperbolic, inflammatory attacks against this Democrat. They're eating their own. What's going on here?
Unbelievable. A guy like Robert Kennedy, who is, genetically, he is as close to John Kennedy as any other human being in politics. And this is a guy that most Democrats hold in very high regard. However, I would say this about today's Democrats, and you may correct me if you think I'm wrong, but today's Democrats, the Democrats that we see in Washington today, would never vote John Kennedy into office. He would never get to be president.
Oh, it's not the same party. You're absolutely correct, Michael. The John F. Kennedy of 50 years ago was a gentleman that had a different style. The whole Democrat Party was a different culture. And as a result, as I said to you in an earlier broadcast, I predict the total demise of the Democrat Party as it exists today. If it's a third party that comes up through the ranks by surprise, or someone taking the leadership in the Democratic Party the way Trump did in the Republican Party, I suspect that's the future. Because this hyperbolic behavior, this vote on the 3,000-page bill and then we'll read it and figure out what what we've got in it, is a control mechanism by the deep state to continue to keep even congressmen in the dark. And what's happening is you're seeing an uprising of these people that are going to react to censorship, not only from the social media side against the public, but within the halls of Congress themselves. You're seeing that. A lot of other little things on politics and elections. Keep an eye on Vivek Ramaswamy. He complimented Robert F. Kennedy as well, saying, hey, he's a Democrat, I'm a Republican, but I got to give him credit. These Democrats are having a meltdown.
Yeah.
It's a total disarray, and we've got to be careful not to let this continue. Self-government's over aristocracy. We've got to keep this country. It's we the people and the majority rule. Hey, on another issue, Senator Rand Paul just referred Anthony Fauci to the Department of Justice. Now that means they've got the goods on gain-of-function research being inappropriately funded by the United States in China. You got Enes Kanter Freedom, and formerly an NBA basketball star, exposes the deep NBA ties to China.
Yeah. Hey, that's music. The music's starting now. So, we're out of time, unfortunately, but that's great, man. I'll tell you what, I always enjoy having you on Fridays, Gene. You make me have a wonderful Friday. Thanks for joining us again today.
Always great. I love being with you guys. Thank you.
Take care.
And good morning. It is 7:30. Fox News is next.